Well, good evening. So first, I'd like to begin, before I even introduce my special guest tonight, let me eat a slice of humble pie. That's always good for you. I have terrific friends, and one of them stepped up when I messed up on my last show. I mentioned Amazon was in Rocky Hill. I goofed. And my good friend Jay Polk tried very hard to clean it up for me without embarrassing me. And so he ended up saying that, but we get the revenue in Cromwell. Now, if my brain had been in focus, I would have recognized that if Rocky Hill is the host, they get the money, not Cromwell. So I want to say I apologize to Amazon. I apologize to Jay Polk. And I'm just glad that I have the kind of friends that I have, that nobody called my house and said to me, Murdy, that was the dumbest thing you could have said. So I'm very, very blessed. I just wanted to know that. And the one good thing about eating humble pie is you don't gain any weight. So I'm very, very happy about that. So let's get to the show, because we got a great show tonight, okay? I've got a terrific guest, and I hereby give her permission, if I mess up like I did with Amazon and Rocky Hill, she can correct me right away, and she won't hurt my feelings, and you'll just kind of grin and say, Murdy did it again. Tonight, I have Judge Julia Aurigemma. Did I say right?
Yes.
I did say so. I started out right. She attended Cornell University, earning a BA in American History. You hear that? American History. And then UConn Law School. So I'm going to give you a background, and then I'm going to back up and say, okay, if you did American History, how'd you end up in law? But we're going to get to that after. She practiced law with the Hartford law firm of Hoberman and Pollock. Is that right?
Yes.
I get two things. Now Rome McGuigan's, from 1978 until 1990, where her practice consisted primarily of commercial and general litigation. I have absolutely no idea what that is, but she's going to tell us shortly, okay? In 1990, she was appointed to the Superior Court. Am I still on?
So far, so good.
Wow, I'm impressing myself. Okay, Judge Aurigemma was one of the first 5 judges to sit on the complex litigation docket. You ready for that? Complex litigation docket. I have enough trouble saying it, and she sat on it. From June 1998 until September 2002. She presided over the Connecticut State class action litigation against Colonial Realty. I got that one right too.
That's right.
I get an A+ so far, right? She was the administrative judge of the Middlesex Judicial District from 2003 through 2008, a civil judge in the Hartford Judicial District from 2008 till 2011.
That's right.
How did you have time to breathe? Never mind. And presiding civil judge of the Middlesex Judicial District from 2011 through 2017, and a civil judge in the New Britain Judicial District from 2017 through 2022. Right?
That's right.
Okay. Now, you resigned from the bench in May 2022. So we're going to get to that after, okay? You just had so much good stuff. When I'm looking at her biography this morning and yesterday, I'm going, oh my gracious, going to take up the whole hour just saying all this wonderful stuff she'd done. But she just sits there like a nice person, and she bods her head and says, yeah, it's okay, Murdy, keep going. Okay. She taught evidence at the University of Connecticut School of Law and coached the Xavier High School model court team for several years. I really like that. I really, really like that. She's lived in Cromwell for 44 years, is married, and this has really, really impressed me. She has 2 sons, one a former Marine officer who served in Afghanistan, and the other a Navy doctor. This, when I started looking, when I invited her to come on, I said, okay, where do we go? She's got so much of a background. She got so much going for her. And then she blew the whole thing. When I read the last line of her biography, she's an avid runner and has completed several marathons. I'm lucky I'm walking. This lady sitting next to me, okay, she's a runner. So I don't know. Somebody up there messed up when they gave me stuff. Okay, Judge, I am totally in awe of you, okay? And I forgot to mention you also happen to be a very nice person. I know you personally. I want to thank you for spending some time with me and our viewers because they're terrific too. But now, on to you. I read your biography. There are some questions that rose to the top, but I must admit my son-in-law Dave helped me pick out some there that might be of most interest to people watching. Number one, for example, you have a bachelor's in American history from Cornell in 1975, and yet in 1978 you attended UConn Law School. What made you change direction? Why did you go from history to law?
Well, I didn't really change direction. I think then and now, if you want to go to law school, you can pretty much major in anything. I was interested in American history. I knew I wanted to go to law school, and I knew I didn't want to major in something like biology or mathematics. So I majored in history.
So you majored in history. Have you ever thought about teaching it? The only reason I'm asking you that is listening to some of the kids in high school, they're not getting the history that I did when I was young, back when dinosaurs walked the earth. That's what my grandchildren think. But, you know, the history of this country is so important, you know, and you've got it.
Well, I've never really thought about teaching it, to tell you the truth, but it probably would be something I would like, yeah.
Have you ever thought, and I'm just throwing this out because it just came to me, every once in a while I have an intelligent thought here. Okay, have you ever thought about approaching Comcast about doing a half-hour show once a month on American history?
No, I haven't.
Think about it, because our kids are not getting, I have to say this, as I make jokes about back when dinosaurs walked the earth and, you know, being young, but you know what? We were taught American history. We were taught what our country was founded on. We were taught about, we didn't all always get along. We had our own little wars. I won't even say little wars. We had our own wars. We disagreed with each other. But I wonder if the kids nowadays get the full picture or if they just get pieces. You know what I mean? That's why I was thinking, with your background, how terrific it would be to have a little show and say, you know, this is aimed at kids. I'm just throwing it out there. I didn't talk to anybody about that. But, you know, it's just something that I think you could bring to the forefront. So, okay, I won't nag you today. I'll call you and nag you tomorrow, okay?
Okay.
All right. Now, okay. Number 2, your bio mentions commercial and general litigation. What does that mean, and what is the difference between the two?
Well, commercial litigation would be involving, let's say, banks foreclosing mortgages or contracts involving business dealings, something like that. General litigation, generally you think of personal injury type litigation, and employment type litigation. So that's the difference.
Which one do you like the best?
I pretty much like them all. I would say that commercial litigation often, if you don't settle your case and you're not in front of a jury, you're in front of a court. That could be, although there are commercial cases that do go in front of juries, but that's one of the big differences. Whereas personal injury litigation is mainly in front of juries, and as is employment litigation. So that's I like them all.
You like them all?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I let's just say that I'm let go and I'm not paid I'm making this up, 3 weeks that they owe me for vacation. I could bring that to court and have you look at the case and see if we had, if I had something valuable to come to you with. When I say valuable, that I use the wrong word, but I mean, would you help me out if I was in that kind of a situation?
As a lawyer, you mean?
Yes.
I would, sure. I mean, my current firm really doesn't do that. It does personal injury litigation for the plaintiff.
Okay.
But I would counsel you first to go to the state because they might be able to solve the problem for you without, the state labor department, without needing a lawyer. But then if you needed a lawyer, of course, I would refer you to someone.
See, that's good advice, and you're able to give that out quickly and say, you go to the state labor department, and a lot of people don't know. Something happens, in their job, and they're very upset, and they feel like they haven't been treated the way they should be. And since I'm not a lawyer, and since I don't know the law, where do I go? And you were telling them, go to the state labor department. Talk to them first before you go and see a lawyer. I like that. I like that. That's grassroots kind of advice to somebody that's sitting out there going, oh, okay, yeah, they told me I was going to get 2 weeks of severance pay and vacation pay, and they didn't give me that. So they go first to the state labor department and say, this is what happened to me.
Right.
Okay, that's very good, very good. Okay. All right. Now, tell me this, because you've got such a varied and terrific background. Is there any particular case that you would like to mention, or that you feel strongly about, or something that you think our viewers would really, they'd like to hear about this?
Oh, wow. There's a few
Go for it.
cases that stand out in my mind. I tried a case as a judge when I was in about 93, and it involved a gentleman who was an ultra marathoner. That means 50 miles or more races. And
back up, wait a minute. 50 miles or more races. We're talking about somebody racing for, oh, you've got to be kidding. I'm lucky I walked 2 feet. But go ahead, go ahead.
He wasn't, not only was he an ultramarathoner, but his picture was on the cover of Ultramarathon magazine, and he was in a triathlon at West Farms Mall, and he was, I believe, on his bike, and he was hit by a gentleman, and he was injured, not terribly badly, but he could no longer run 50 miles. He could only run about, I think, 5.
Oh, wow.
Not very. And in that case, the defendant had offered a very low amount of money. The plaintiff's attorney nicely argued to the jury for the limit in the defendant's insurance policy, which was $300,000, and the jury came in with a verdict of $600,000. So that was a memorable case.
That would make me stay awake nights. I'll tell you that, right? So there was $300,000 cash in hand for this person, but the jury said no, we want. So what do you do in a case like that? I mean, how do you get blood from a stone?
Well, I often, the parties will settle within the insurance limit, but sometimes they, they will attempt to get the more from the insurance company on the theory that you could have paid us whatever we asked for before trial, and you didn't. So
it was, excuse me, but it was the insurance company they were after, not the person.
Right.
Oh, okay, all right, because you know what, that blew my mind there, because I'm thinking this poor person, had an accident, and the person that's hurt gets 300,000, and then they turn around and are they getting it from this person that had the accident? But no, they were after the insurance company.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So what happened?
I don't really know. The judge doesn't find out. I'm assuming that the plaintiff received somewhere between the 600 and the policy limit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but the judge has to make a decision, but they don't get to find out what the final outcome is, right?
Well, in a jury trial, the jury makes a decision.
The jury makes a decision.
The judge sometimes is asked to reduce the verdict. I can't really recall in this case whether I was or not, but
Okay.
But after that, I'm sure the plaintiff received money.
Received, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a substantial amount.
Yes.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you start out with 300,000, yes. Yeah, I imagine you certainly do, goodness sakes. Now, that was an interesting case that I asked you to share with our viewers, but it scared the heck out of me. Good thing I don't ride a bike. Anyway, now you were one of the first 5 judges to sit on the complex litigation docket. Okay, now, how is that different from a regular docket?
Well, in a regular docket, depending on where you are, there might be 3 or 4 or 5 judges sitting on, in my case, it was civil. That's what commercial litigation, personal injury litigation is all, contract, foreclosure, all that is civil. There might be 5 judges, so whenever you had a motion in court, you might come up before a different judge, and if it was a complicated fact pattern, you might have to, educate the judge, and then a different judge, and a different judge, and it would just take a lot more time for the litigants. So the thought was that if you had one judge on more complicated cases, then the lawyers wouldn't have to,
Go from one to another to another.
invent the wheel every single
Every
time they came in front of the courthouse. So that's why they started the complex litigation docket, and it's still going on.
It is.
Yeah,
It's still going on.
yeah.
So it's one judge. Am I reading you right? If I misunderstand me, this is your opportunity to tell me, no, Murdy, you got it wrong. It ends up, if it's a complex litigation case, one judge picks it up and works with that right
Yes.
all the way through.
Right. I think Stanford, Hartford, I think New Haven all have complex litigation judges, usually maybe 2 or 3 in a courthouse, and parties can move to have their case referred to complex litigation.
Oh, they can?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, that's how you get before the complex litigation judge. And then if you are assigned a complex litigation judge, that same judge will stay with your case, hopefully for, from start to finish.
Would you like to be that kind of a judge?
Well, I was,
Okay.
and it was, quite frankly, it was, one of my fellow judges said they thought that sometimes the lawyers would, run up their legal fees and then settle, and we had I had a lot of writing in a lot of settlement conferences, not very many trials, but it was, the cases were very fascinating. So yeah, I think that the complex litigation judges all enjoy it.
Well, that's
yeah.
good. To me, well, being a lay person, having no idea, it would make me nervous to have to decide you're wrong and I'm right, or I'm wrong and you're right. Back and forth kinds of things. How do you square that with yourself? How do you know when you make a final decision? How do you say, okay, this is the best I could do, especially if it's money?
Well, you just have to look at what the law is, and what, follow what you think the law is to your best ability.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense, but I'm just, for the people out there like me that we're not lawyers and we're not judges, this is, law 101 for us, how does a judge decide, what they do decide, I know it sounds like a stupid question, but even, an umpire has to make a call, out or safe, and the judge sits there and has to make the same kind of a call, out or safe, and it's got to be taxing in some ways.
Well, in a court trial, the judge determines credibility.
Oh,
so
okay.
You can have two witnesses saying diametrically opposed versions of what happened, and you just have to use, your common sense and your experience to determine who's telling the truth. And then, of course, the lawyers are permitted to cross-examine witnesses, and that is a very powerful tool to determine the truth, because you can say whatever you want, but the opposing lawyer can then say, but you said this. You said you were, at the store on June 10th, but we have this document here that shows that you were, you were in Alabama or something like that.
Exactly,
exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it is a very powerful tool. So that helps the judge. The judges always like to have good lawyers.
I can understand that.
Because we're not supposed to ask too many questions. That's not our job. The lawyers are supposed to.
They're supposed to bring
out the facts. Yeah.
They bring you the facts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can understand. I'm kind of laughing when you're talking about making these decisions. I remember when my husband, when my son was young, okay, and we went to a Little League game, okay, and the umpire didn't show up. So they called my husband out of the stands and said, Stan, will you be the umpire? And he said, I really don't want to. And they said, look, otherwise we can't have the game. So, will you do it? So he said, okay. So the first inning, called my son out on first base. I didn't talk to him for a whole day. So I'm going to tell you right now, it's not easy being the one making the decision, is it?
Oh, poor Stan.
I know.
I feel for him. But if that was a courtroom,
yes,
then he really couldn't. He would have to disqualify himself if his son was
it's the one
in
that
court.
Was
so
right.
he wouldn't have faced that problem.
Yeah, that's one good thing, right?
Yeah.
That's very, very good, Okay. Now tell me, what was your favorite part of being a judge? Because I'm then going to ask you what's your least favorite, so you might as well,
Well, I liked trying to settle cases.
Oh, excellent. Mm-hmm.
That was at the last part of my, before I left the bench, I was doing pretrials for the tax court, which is in New Britain, and the tax appeal court, which is, if you're...
I'm sorry, is it tex, T-E-X-T?
Tax, T-A-X.
T-A-X.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you, usually a commercial property, if you own a hotel.
Oh, okay.
And the town, assesses it at $5 million, and you think it's only worth $3 million.
Right.
Then you would appeal to the court to whatever judicial district you're in, and then it would often get transferred to the court in New Britain. And those type of pretrials, you would have appraisers, you would have the town's attorney, you would have the taxpayer's attorney, and you would talk about, what the appraisal, what's believable about it, what is a little weak, and then you would try to hammer out a value that both parties could live with. And that was, sometimes you were talking millions and millions of dollars in value. And that was when you were able to settle that so that the town and the taxpayer didn't have to then go spend all the money going forward with trial. That was
Right.
I like that. That was good.
I bet it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it had to be rewarding too to come to a conclusion that was fair to everybody.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what everything, you know, being a judge, being a lawyer is.
Right.
Yes, your job as a lawyer is to defend the person, or, you know, but also you also want to be fair.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
at least that's the way my son-in-law, you know, so I just wanted to make sure, you know.
Yeah. And I also like jury trials.
Do you?
Oh yeah, they were very interesting. Yeah, and the judge has to give a charge to the jury. So what I would do would be to prepare a charge ahead of time and then give it to all the lawyers. And then we would have a conference and we would discuss, you know, what portions of my charge they didn't like and what they wanted to add or take out. And that usually didn't take very long.
It
because when you tell them what you're
yeah.
going to give to the jury and they can see, then you don't have to bother about going through all the standard charges and saying, well, we don't want you to give this one, Judge, because they know you're not going to give that one because it's not in your preliminary charge.
It's not in your
that was fun.
I bet.
And then
I bet.
interacting with the jurors was interesting. I would always talk to them after every trial, and it was very. They would surprise you. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I always worried about, you know, being on a jury. I was dismissed once because because there was I think it was an assault case, and I can't remember exactly. It happened years and years and years ago. But the problem was that my son was the state trooper that, you know, went to the assault, you know, and so, you know, they called me to jury duty and they said, is there a reason why you can't serve? And I put my hand up and I said, yeah, my husband is a police dispatcher and my son is a state trooper that was there. And they went, go away.
Yeah.
Just go away, Marty. You know, no, don't even bother coming back because we're not going to need you. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but I thought being on a jury, that's a responsibility too.
It is.
It's a real responsibility.
And believe it or not, although I don't know how you felt, but most people don't want to be on a jury.
No, they
and
don't.
They'll try to figure out anything they can
to get off of it. Yeah.
But surprisingly, most, and I must have tried, well, maybe a couple hundred jury cases.
Oh, wow.
And most jurors bond, and when you ask them afterwards, they said they liked the experience. They thought it was a positive experience. So even though, you know,
even if you and I might disagree on a jury, they still bond. They still, they still because we're here.
You have to remember, I did mainly civil cases.
Right.
So
right.
Someone's freedom is not at issue.
Oh, right.
And in those cases, there's a lot more room to sort of, you know, if you feel one way and I feel another, you feel the defendant wasn't negligent. I feel they were. Well, okay, let's just give the defendant maybe plaintiff a little less money, and
right.
we'll work it out that way.
Work it out.
That's why there's so many fewer hung juries in civil.
That's
than
really,
in
you know,
yeah.
that's really a great, you know, I hadn't thought about that. And like you say, fewer hung juries in civil cases.
Yeah, it's very, very rare.
They can work together and, you know, and still the plaintiff ends up with something. Maybe not all that I wanted him to have, but most of what you wanted him to have.
Right.
And I think, that's really, really terrific. I like that. So really, you know. Now, have you ever presided in a family court?
Yes.
Tell me about that. I mean, family court to me would be, that's kind of a scary thing. When I say that, I mean, how do I know whether, I'm just going to pick an assault case because I can't think of anything else. Okay, whether he really hit her or he didn't mean to hit her or something. How do you do in a family court, and what does a family court mostly consist of? Am I way out in the...
Well, if it was an assault, it would be probably in criminal court.
Okay, okay.
But I filled in family occasionally, and it is by far the most highly charged court because generally people's money is at issue, whether they have to
Right.
give up part of their income for alimony, etc., their children, custody of their children, those two things. In fact, I think the only shootings we've had in Connecticut have been involving
Families.
cases in court. So and there's lots of attorneys. The children, the court can appoint a guardian ad litem for the children, or an attorney for the children. And after the divorce is over, you have certain people that continue to come back to court for years. So it's a very emotional. It's a tough. I always admired the family judges that I worked with because they have to be very patient, and
They have to see beyond just what's right in front of them, too.
yeah. It's a challenge.
It is a challenge,
Yeah.
isn't it? So I give them a lot of credit, that's for sure. Especially having come out of a foster home, okay? And believe it or not, my sister and I went to court because my father was an alcoholic, and he wanted us, and my aunt wanted us, and so we ended up in a foster home and not with either one of them. But I know exactly what you're talking about because the judge sat between my sister and I and asked us, where do you want to live? And we really didn't know. We were 8 and 6, So you just,
Boy.
Anyway, it doesn't, but I'm glad you said that. Now, let's talk a little bit about personally, okay? Mom. Here we are, Mom, okay? You had a son served in Afghanistan.
Yes. Yeah.
How does a mother deal with a child in harm's way in Afghanistan?
It's not easy. It was much more difficult for my husband because he had been also in the military. So he sort of knew what went on during war.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I'd never been in that situation, but you pray a lot.
Yeah.
So it was a happy day for us when he got transferred back to the U.S.
Right.
So it's hard.
I bet it is hard.
Yeah.
That's really why I asked you.
He had a satellite phone, so he could call us all the time.
Oh, that was
and that was. But we did have one. He was at a rug store, believe it or not, in Afghanistan, looking at rugs, and all of a sudden, on a satellite phone, and all of a sudden, he said, "Oh, I gotta go." We said, "Oh my gosh, what happened? Did the rug store get attacked?"
Right.
And that was a terrible.
Oh, I was going to say,
But
talk about scaring a parent.
Fortunately, he called back in about half an hour and said,
But I bet that was the longest half hour of your life.
It was a long half hour, yeah. So,
Yeah. I give you a lot of credit, and you also have a son that's in the Navy. Am I correct?
Yes, he's a pediatric cardiologist.
A pediatric cardiologist.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's scary just to hear that, pediatric cardiologist. How did he get involved in that? How did he find that for his life's vocation?
Well, that's funny you should ask. When he was in high school, he always liked science, biology, chemistry, and he also liked to look at those shows on TV where they're doing the operations, and I could never look at those.
You couldn't look at
but
that
he
with
would,
him, right?
he would be transfixed. So I think when he was maybe 13 or 14, I said, "Dave, why don't you consider being a doctor?" And Xavier had a, young doctors club or something, and he joined that, and and then he went. he went to college and he didn't apply himself as much as I think he could have.
Oh, yeah.
As much as his roommate did.
Yeah.
And so after he took the MCATs and was average, so he went to a year master's at BU Medical. And after that, he aced the MCATs and
Wow.
got into USIS, and I never can remember what that stands for, Uniform Services University for Health Science, I think. And that's where you go for free to become a Navy, a Marine, an Army, or an Air Force, or a public health service doctor. And you get paid while you're going.
While you're going.
Yeah, so he went that route, and then he decided that he preferred children to adults.
Right.
So he went into pediatrics, and then he went into he did a specialty for it's called a fellowship for pediatric cardiology.
Wow.
Yeah,
You've
so-
got to be so proud.
Oh,
Really.
yeah, I am very proud of both of them.
But yeah, both of them.
Yeah.
And they both are giving kind of people.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's what we need more of that. And also, I'm going to say this to you, that I think you are a terrific role model for young girls.
Oh,
No, I'm serious. I mean, you know, when I was young, like I say, back when dinosaurs walked the earth, which makes my kids just get hysterical, go, oh, Mom, you know, you could be a teacher, you could be a nurse, you know, you could work in a store, but they never said you could be a judge,
yeah.
you could be a lawyer, you know, you could be a veterinarian,
Yeah.
you could be a doctor. No, they just didn't do that. Okay,
Yeah.
those were that was a whole different world than what our girls have now.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to give some advice to a young gal in high school, let's start with high school, and she said to you, Judge, I would like to be a lawyer, what would you say to her?
I would say go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's loosey-goosey. Give me something specific you would say to her.
I would probably tell her to go to try to save money and go to a 2-year college, and then maybe
To decide if she
UConn.
really liked it.
And then because for law, it doesn't really matter where you went to undergrad.
Oh, it doesn't.
No.
Okay.
Sometimes I think in maybe the financial field, it might matter that you went to an Ivy school or something. But,
Right.
So I would tell her, you know, try to save money because law schools, I think, can be expensive.
Right.
And, you know, she might also consider doing some public service first. I think, I know UConn, I think it waives tuition for military, people who have served in the military, UConn Law.
oh, wow.
So I might advise her to do that, yeah.
That, you know, that's good advice. This is
Yeah.
something that, yeah, we have guidance counselors in schools, but it's like everything else, as you know, and it's just, you know, this we kind of have these little ladders that they can go up and down, you know. And I'd like to see people try different things, you know. And
Yeah.
you are, you know, when you went to college, and were there a lot of people, a lot of women in your class?
Yes.
There
were.
was.
Yeah, I went to Cornell, which had been co-ed since the beginning.
Oh, wow.
Since
Okay.
the 19th century.
Okay.
So, yeah. And when I went to law school, it was one of the first classes where it was, I think, 50-50, men and women.
Oh, wow. That's really great.
But when I became a judge, I think there were only about 12 judges on the bench that were women at that time, in 1990, yeah.
Only 12.
Yeah.
Out of
Now
50.
there's quite a, I mean, I'm not sure it's 50-50 yet, but it's getting closer.
Oh,
yeah.
that is
yeah.
terrific.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that shows progress. It shows progress for everybody, not just the women, but I mean the men are dealing with women in as a colleague, as somebody that understands what they're talking about, understands where they're coming from, isn't afraid to argue with them a little. I mean, I like all of those things.
When I was first on the bench in '91, I think, I tried a criminal case, and the lawyer was older. I don't think he'd ever been before a female judge, and he continued to call me His Honor throughout the entire trial. So finally I said, maybe Your Honor. It's sort of gender neutral. Why don't you try that?
Oh, you kill me. You kill me. Yeah. You learn as you go along, right? How to deal with it.
I think the lawyers are much more used to appearing in front of female judges.
Female judges now. I think that's terrific.
Yeah.
And like I say, I'm so happy because it gives the young women a role model. Somebody I can be a lawyer, but then I can be a judge.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, so great for them nowadays. So it's just it kills me. Now that you've resigned from the bench, which blew my mind. What do you want to do now?
Well, I'm now practicing with a law firm.
Okay, you're practicing with a law firm now.
Yeah, the Flood Law Firm in Middletown.
Okay.
And I didn't want to be retired. I was too bored.
You were too bored, yep.
Yeah, so I only work 3 days a week. And I'm doing a lot of writing, which I love to do. I mean,
okay, now when you talk about writing, draw me a little picture. What do you mean? Do you do
motions, briefs.
Oh, okay.
Things like that.
Not opinions.
No more opinions. No.
Okay. I just wondered because I thought, somebody with your talent might want to have a column in a newspaper or something like that.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. What I'd like to see is someone with your background, someone with your get up and go, being a role model for young people, saying you can do anything you want to do. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman or a boy or a girl or what. If you want to be a judge, this is the way you do it. You go to law school. Am I right? Is that where you start? How do you start?
Yeah, law school.
Okay, if you're going to do something, if you're going to tell a high school student, what would you tell that student to start out studying? When you're in high school, English and what else? Is there any background in the high school, or do they need to move to college to get the background to be a lawyer?
Well, if there's a course in government, that would help.
That would help.
Yeah.
Okay.
And English is good because most lawyers have to write.
Okay. Oh yeah. I forgot that whole piece.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
They have to write. Well,
Yeah.
I think that's really good. Okay. So now you're going to write, and you're going to do anything your little heart desires, and you're going to travel, or you're just going to stay in the wonderful little Cromwell?
No, we like to travel. Yeah.
For you?
So I'll travel a bit, and I'd like to do mediations also. So
you would like to do the mediation?
Oh yeah, that's hopefully it's a pretty competitive field, but hopefully I'll get some mediations to do.
Now, how do you get involved with that? Do you go to a court, or you join a law firm, like you've done, or how do you get into mediation?
Lawyers, there are a lot of retired judges who are mediators. There are practicing lawyers who do mediations. So, law firms develop their preferences for mediators. So, it's a crowded field. So I would, I'm hoping that somebody will develop a preference for me at some point. And Right.
Now, I like that fact that you were working with one of the schools. And
Xavier.
Xavier, yeah.
Model court.
You know why? That's why I had to look and said Xavier.
Yeah.
You know, a model court.
Yeah.
So what was that?
That was very enjoyable. You know, the kids were they really didn't know anything about courts, and it was basically like pretty much like appellate court arguments. It wasn't trying. They didn't have to question witnesses or anything.
Right.
I don't think. It was just arguments, and one group had to take one side and one group the other, and then there were competitions, and it was a lot of fun. The kids were very enthusiastic, and I think some of them went on to become lawyers.
I was going to say, I bet, yeah. When I was first selectman, I had an evening where we had a Boy Scout troop that came in, and they became, selectmen, okay? Sat around the table, and then I brought them, I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was something they had to make a decision on. And it was just fascinating to watch them, because these are kids that were going to school together, and they were good friends, and yet you said blue was blue, but I said, no, it's green. And you'd look at me, and I'd look at these kids, and I'd kind of grin to myself, and I'd say, they're getting a real taste of what it's like in the real world. So that's why I like the fact that you worked with the school kids and gave them an opportunity. I think that's real. We should do more of that. That's why I'm encouraging you to do something and give the kids an opportunity to learn from you.
Well, I wouldn't mind going to Cromwell High and giving a guest lecture or something, or questions.
Wouldn't that be great? That would be terrific.
If they have a civics class or history or government, but
I think that would be just fantastic.
That would be great. I would love that.
Wouldn't that be great? Yeah, it's giving back, and it's also opening up a door for them. Yeah. And I think that is just terrific, I'm telling you. I really wanted to spend a couple of minutes, this has been a terrible week for our police force, not in Cromwell, no, I take that back. It's been a terrible week for all police forces with the murders in Bristol.
Yes.
That broke my heart.
Yes.
And yet, I don't know where we went wrong that someone would try to take the lives of young men who are trying to do good for the community, okay? If you had an opportunity to talk to some young people today, and what would you say to them about something like that happening in their community? Yeah, that's the way I am.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say? I think, as I understand it, this was like an ambush. So someone either didn't like these particular policemen or just was out to get any policeman.
Was just evil.
And you might not like a policeman who stops you if you're speeding, but most people would like a policeman to be around if your house is getting broken into, with someone with a weapon. So
exactly.
I just think that people have to realize what a hard job it is. And
I love that. The reason I'm asking you as a judge, okay, you deal with all kinds of people all the time. I mean, it's nice if you could live in a nice little cloud or a little cocoon, but you've had this, the civil, and you've seen what goes on in the criminal, and you've dealt with all kinds of situations, litigation, mediation, and yet you have these people that don't go through any of that, just take out a gun and kill somebody. It just blows my mind, just blows my mind, But anyway, we're getting pretty close to the end here. So what I'd like to do is first thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Very much. And this will be on Channel 15 here in Middlesex and 19 down on the shore. So they worked very, very well together, Tyler and Kirsten, and also Chris down on Channel 19. So, I mean, we're blessed in that way, okay? And I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate everything you've done to make this show a success. I hope people have enjoyed listening to you because you bring a different perspective than Murdy has, that's for sure. Okay, and I'm sure that I speak for both of us, but I'd be terribly remiss if, especially after this terrible week that our police in Bristol have suffered, I didn't thank each and every law enforcement officer, whether he or she serves in a municipality, the state, or federally, and our first responders and all our military men and women, all the people that you and I out there take for granted that they're there for us. And I would like you to have the last words. So would you please say something to our audience and that you'd like them to know about you, or about what you hope for, or what you see?
Well, I hope for, along your same lines, society where we have a bit or a lot more respect for policemen. And I would also like to thank them all, and the first responders. Cromwell Fire Department are terrific.
They are.
And of course the people in the military. So I would like to echo your sentiments for that. And
I think that's really great. I really do appreciate it. So if we get an opportunity to do this again, I'd like you to think about what else you'd like to tell the people in the audience, because they're what makes this really, really good. And of course, Tyler and Kirsten and Chris and all those people that support us. And so I really want to thank you for coming. And I want to tell all those people out there that serve us, that work for us, that try so hard to give us a good country, give us a good world. We really, really do appreciate you, and God bless you all. Thank you.